Welcome to Narrative Nook Cafe. If you're new here, welcome. I'm happy you joined me today. Today I want to tell you about how my life was turned upside down in the best way possible. So, without further ado, here's the story. My name is Adrian Ford. For most of my life, I believe love came with terms and conditions. I grew up in a house where affection was earned. Performance reviews were disguised as dinner conversations. Praise followed achievement. Silence and isolation followed mistakes. My mother used to say, "Legacy matters, Adrian. You will not bring shame to the family's name." What she meant was, emotion is a liability. Failure wasn't an option, neither was mediocrity. I came from family where enough was never enough. I had to achieve to keep up appearances. I had to always strive to be the best, even when it didn't really matter. My place in the family was negotiable based on performance. And my parents had no problem disowning me if I made them look bad. So I built my life accordingly. By 38, I had more money than I could reasonably spend, a penthouse in the sky, a company dominating 3 industries, an assistant who scheduled my breathing. But I didn't have warmth or love, and I told myself I didn't need it. It was late December. I had just been dumped. Again. At least it was over the phone this time. I'm usually just ghosted, cheated on, or they would break up with me over text. I dated them all, models, executives, and I even tried dating a therapist, and even she couldn't be bothered to break up with me properly. This breakup was no different. It was the same story. She said I was emotionally unavailable, that loving me felt like negotiating a contract. I told her I understood. I didn't understand. I didn't know what they wanted from me. I didn't love any of them, so I wasn't heartbroken, but I was beginning to become anxious. My mom kept asking me when I was going to get married and have children. You know, family legacy, optics, and all of that stuff. After the phone call, I decided to go for a walk to think and strategize on how I'm going to make this marriage and family thing work so that I can make my mom happy. Truthfully, I had zero desire for either. I already had to perform every day of my life for my parents. I did not want to voluntarily perform for anyone else. I cut my walk short because I got an alert on my phone that the worst snowstorm of the year was going to happen in 2 hours. I still had stuff on my cart I needed to order since I would be in my penthouse for a while. I cut through an alley. I heard little feet shuffle behind a dumpster, so I looked behind it. I found 2 children in dirty clothes. They looked scared, but they didn't speak. They didn't cry. The older one, a girl maybe 6, stood in front of the smaller boy, shielding him. They didn't ask for help. They just watched me. I asked, "Where are your parents?" They said nothing. "Are you hurt?" Again, silence. The boy's lips trembled like he wanted to speak. The girl squeezed his hand. He stayed quiet. They had learned something. Silence was safer. I looked around for the person who might be responsible for them, but the alley was empty. I looked at the children, then at the sky, then back at them. Logic said, "This isn't your responsibility." But the boy looked at me and whispered.
Are we in trouble?
He was trembling. They had on jackets that were too big for them and too thin for the 20-degree weather, and something in me broke. "No," I said immediately. "You're not in trouble." I picked him up. He was freezing. The girl hesitated. I knelt down and said, "You can come too." And she stepped forward. The city shut down within the hour. Police were delayed. Roads closed. It was just us. I ordered everything I thought that they needed. Clothes, toothbrushes, children's shampoo, soup. They didn't speak. Not in the elevator, not in my penthouse, not during their bath. I stood outside the bathroom door and said, "I'll be right here." And I stayed. They didn't ask for anything. They didn't touch anything without permission. That silence was heavier than noise. After they were bathed, I served dinner. We all sat at the kitchen table. I placed soup in front of them. The boy stared at it. I said softly, "It's yours." You don't owe me anything. The girl studied me for a long time. Then,
Lila, Noah.
I froze. I'm Adrian. She nodded, and something shifted. Once Lila spoke, Noah began smiling, asking questions, like
Is this your house?
acting like a 4-year-old instead of a survivor. Her voice gave him permission to be a child. That night, Noah fell asleep on my couch. Lila sat near the fireplace. I sat on the floor beside her. You don't have to tell me anything, I said. There was a long silence. Then she whispered,
Mommy got sick.
What kind of sick?
Sleep sick.
She shrugged. I kept my face steady. She told me in fragments.
Mommy wouldn't wake up.
She said that she tried shaking her. It was cold, but they waited until some men came and were fighting, so Lila and Noah ran. They found an empty alley and waited there. That's when they heard me and they hid behind the dumpster. She thought if they were quiet, no one would make them leave. Then she looked at me.
Are we staying here?
I didn't answer like a businessman. I answered like something else. Yes. The storm lasted 7 days. 7 quiet, snow-covered days where the world shrank to my penthouse and 2 children who barely knew me. On the second night, I let them pick a movie. Lila chose an animated Disney film. I hadn't watched something animated since I was a child, back when my world was smaller, before I understood performance reviews. The movie started. I expected them to sit quietly. Instead, Lila slowly started singing. Soft at first, testing. She didn't look at me while she did it, like she was afraid she'd be told to stop. Noah watched her. Then he joined in. They didn't know all the words. They made some up. At one point, Lila glanced at me and said,
You're supposed to sing too.
I blinked. I don't know the song. She rolled her eyes in dramatic 6-year-old fashion.
Just try.
So I did. Off key, flat, embarrassing. Noah laughed. Not at me, with me. That sound did something to me. It was so pure. And for a second, I remembered being 7 years old, sitting cross-legged on the floor of my childhood living room, before I learned that joy needed to be contained. I remembered singing once, loudly, and being told, Adrian, that's enough. Somewhere along the way, I stopped. That night, in my penthouse, I sang again, and no one told me to stop. On day 3, the power flickered. Noah panicked. Lila grabbed his hand instinctively. I assured them it was fine. To distract them, I suggested building something. They looked at me skeptically. A fort, I clarified. We dragged cushions across marble floors, draped blankets over designer chairs, ruined the symmetry of my perfectly curated space. Lila declared it our official headquarters. Noah insisted we needed a password. I let them decide everything. Inside that ridiculous, uneven fort, with battery candles flickering against expensive artwork, they were fearless. Lila told stories. Noah added dramatic sound effects. They made me a member. And as they argued about imaginary dragons and secret missions, I realized something unsettling. I had never been allowed to be messy. My childhood had been polished, controlled, managed. There were no forts, no chaos, no loud storytelling, just expectations. And here I was, 6'3", 40 years old and 40 feet above the city, sitting cross-legged inside a blanket cave, being handed an invisible sword. And I was happy. Later that week, Lila sat beside me while Noah napped. She was watching snow fall against the glass.
You don't yell.
I frowned. Should I? She shook her head quickly.
Mommy's friends yelled a lot.
The room felt heavy. Then she asked something I wasn't prepared for.
Are you gonna leave when we're good?
I didn't understand at first. When we're good, I repeated. She nodded.
When we stop being trouble?
There it was, the belief I knew too well. Love depends on behavior. Affection depends on compliance. Performance equals safety. I turned toward her fully. You don't have to earn staying, I said carefully. You don't have to be good enough. She studied my face, searching for fine print. There wasn't any. That might have been the first moment I meant something without calculation. That week, they didn't just adapt to my home, they filled it. There were crayons on marble, cereal crumbs on imported rugs, giggles echoing off glass walls, and something inside me started to thaw. I realized I wasn't just learning how to be a father. I was relearning how to be a person. They reminded me of who I was before I learned that love could disappear. They weren't just children I had rescued. They were giving me something I didn't know I was missing. A second chance. A version of love that wasn't conditional. By the time the snow melted, I wasn't afraid of responsibility. I was afraid of losing them. And that's when I knew. This was love. Once the authorities could get to the penthouse, they confirmed everything. Mother deceased. She died of a heart attack. They had been homeless for a while, so she was only identified as their mom because some of the other unhoused were able to tell the police about the children. Their mom didn't have family, and no father listed. They told me that the children would have to be placed in foster care. I felt something I had never felt before. Panic. The thought of them leaving, of that silence returning, was unbearable. My mother called it irrational. She said that I didn't know them or their background and that I was being illogical. I told her that love and logic don't always intersect. That's what makes love, real love, so powerful. They are not risks that I need to assess. They are children whom I love, and that is all I need to know. And I signed the papers. Lila Ford, Noah Ford. For the first time in my life, I built something that wasn't for profit. I learned how to braid hair. Badly. Lila eventually asked if she could go to the hair place like on TV. Now we have a standing weekly appointment. I learned soccer rules. It's still a little confusing, but the look on Noah's face when he runs up and down the field is priceless. I sat in tiny theater chairs and clapped too loudly as Lila sang in the school recital. I packed lunches, checked homework, stayed up during fevers. They didn't just find safety, they found freedom. And I found purpose. As the years passed, the children thrived. Lila graduated top of her class, confident, brilliant, still in love with theater. She once told me, "You're the reason I'm brave." But she was wrong. She was brave long before I met her. Noah became a star on the field, fast, focused, laughing louder than anyone. He calls me before every big game. "Front row, Dad?" "Always," I say. Always. The truth is that I built companies that changed industries. I built wealth that outlived markets. But becoming their father, that was what I was meant to do. The first night I found them, they didn't say a word. I thought I rescued them from the cold. I didn't realize. They rescued me from toxicity, a life of loneliness and silence. The world was no longer a stage, and for the first time ever, I no longer felt the pressure to perform. They have filled my life with the kind of love and joy I never knew existed. The system of performance-based love and attention ended that cold winter day in December, and within a week, I learned how to love and be loved based on nothing more than the fact that we exist. I taught them many things, but they taught me the most important lesson of my life, that love can and should be free. If you like this story, click like, share, and subscribe. Do you think that the basic form of pure love is just for the person to exist in your life? Let me know down in the comment section what you think the basis of pure love is. Thank you for visiting Narrative Nook Cafe, where we drop a narrated story every Monday. See you next week.